everything was kind of quiet, on the quiet scale here, because the leadership here did not sort of had control of the mass of people, especially black people, and kind of controlled the radicalism and that type of thing, and kept it at a minimum. And when I say the leadership, I'm talking about more so the churches.
We couldn't go to movie theaters. The only one theater in town would allow us in, and then we had to sit up in the balcony. That was in St. Joe. If you wanted to go out and eat dinner at a restaurant, well, you could work there, but you couldn't go and eat there.
Even our Catholic Church was segregated. So we had a lot of segregation in St. Joe.
Because I'm on the mind that if you don't learn from the past, then you're just going to repeat it that is in the future. And we needed to know how that we got here and not to take anything really for granted.
As we speak, there are those who are preparing to divide us.
I went to Bartlett, which was segregated, but didn't really pay any attention to it. You know, at the time, segregation was just a word. I was at school with my friends. I was at school with familiar teachers that really cared about us as individuals. Now, they integrated in 54. I went to Central in 56, and that's actually when I felt my first discomfort.
Being a segregated school, but living in an integrated neighborhood, it was kind of difficult to understand why in one place you see your friends and in another place you don't when it's school time. Other than that, we did not have all the luxuries of some of the other schools in St. Joe, but we had excellent teachers, we had excellent custodial help, cafeteria help, administrators, because they in turn instilled also the importance of how education will help you. And so through that, we were introduced to a lot of things. I remember in school, we were thrilled just to have one microscope in science.
Everybody helped everybody. There was lots of big families during that time, black and white, and people didn't blatantly segregate and discriminate as much in Missouri and Kansas as they did in the South, where there were horrific things that went on in the South. There was hangings and stuff.
The only thing that we were segregated at mostly was the park, like Crook Park. And we couldn't go to Crook Park. And we could go to the park, but you couldn't go on you couldn't use the swings, sliding boards, all that type of thing, you know what I mean? And we always had one day out of the year, we all went to Crook Park, you know what I mean? Or Lake and Terry, even. We used to have Sunday school picnics, what they call Sunday school picnics. And we all went to all the neighboring towns all the way around, from Cameron, Waltina, Troy, Highland, wherever you had a black church in those towns, they come in truckloads, in cattle trucks and all that type of thing, you know what I mean? And we all be there at Lake and Surrey. I guess you could say maybe probably 8,000 people, blacks, you know what I mean? That many would be there. on that particular day. And the only thing they couldn't use at Lick and Trade was the dance floor, the ballroom. Any other facilities, was available.
Back in those days, they did not have like the black stores or nothing like that. Most of them was either business for like restaurants or the bars, you know. They could go like that.
I was just a busy person, and I had, in my ways, that I had turned from wildness to goodness. It didn't bother me, and I wasn't interested in that kind of business, but I was interested into a lot of voting and things like that, trying to help out. Then I was just busy trying to make it, but it don't seem like it was very much. It was some, I do know that, but how much or when it was, it's just a lot of same old going on as it is now to a certain extent.
Well, the one thing I guess that stands out the biggest is because there was one young white girl, and she was like about a year younger than I was. And we were informed I was to call her Miss, and I was to be Camilla. See, right then, you said you're not going to get along together. And that's when I started to tell you. Before we went to school, we played together, and we were just, you know, whoever you were, and we loved you and got along good together. We went to school. This is education. This is how we educate people. They go one way and we go the other, and then we call names.
That was actually how it was. Sit-ins, actual killings and stuff before it got better.
Oh, you know, just light skin. They called me the N-word. But I see them now, and I think, why did you do this to me? I never said anything, but I just wondered why they did this to me.
Mom told me about one time when she was on a bus, and white fellow came in and said, "Get up, get in the back." And she said, "No, I'm not." And she had me in her arms. And one of the other black ladies that was on the bus said, "Honey, you better go ahead and move on back there, because you see those women out there sweeping the streets now? They could do that to you and no telling what happened to your child." So she got up, picked up the baby, and went on to the back. Can you imagine that now? If you tell a black woman, get up and get to the back, you have all kinds of trouble. But that's the way it was.
But at that time, I do remember there was discrimination on the buses. And so at that time we had moved down in South St. Joe. So I had to take a bus to come up to the junior college. And I can remember one bus driver wouldn't let me ride up in the front area. But that didn't bother me because I was going to sit there. I paid my money and I was going to sit there, so I sat behind him. I was kind of mean, but I don't care. You know, at that time I thought I paid the same amount. Now if you were going to let me on free, I'd go sit where you wanted me to. But if I'm paying the same money, I'm going to sit where I want to.
It's a Martin Luther King assassination in '68, and but Robert Kennedy, both, you know, and that, you know, just kind of set off a lot of riots, and then, you know, those things too, you know, just it just had this, the nation was really, you know, just upset during that year, and that's when I seen things really change. There's just a racial, the divide that was always there, but then I suppose, but those things, you know, kind of brought it out more, you know, just it brought out the frustrations that were, you know, just kind of, that kind of kept under wraps that no one realized was still there, I guess. I don't know, you know, just on some level.
My first impression, we used to play baseball at the corner of 20th and Jewel. There was a vacant lot there.
All the kids from Garfield went there. Of course, schools were not integrated. But there was a black boy who probably lived down near Bartlett. I'm assuming that. And he came up every day, and he was welcome. His name was Bill Terry. And the reason I remember his name being Bill Terry, because at the same time, the manager of the New York Giants, not San Francisco, was named Bill Terry. And Bill was very welcome. He was one of us, just like anybody else. He got his turn at bat, and he got his turn in the field. And that's really the first first time I was ever really with someone my age and playing with them.
Because there were some students there that didn't want, quote unquote, blacks there. I didn't want to be there. And it made for some interesting confrontations, let's put it like that. But for the most part, segregation when I was young didn't bother me because riding on the back of the bus, hey, we grew up with it.
In Coffeeville, Memphis, Tennessee, Chicago, that sort of thing was going on everywhere. People were being murdered all around us.
You were considered less than human. And after World War II, now this is hard to believe. My father told me he went and the fires were still hot they were burning people's bodies, Jewish people's bodies mostly, in Germany. And to the last second, so they moved up there and try to kill as many as possible. And the German people were looking behind the black GIs for tails because they had been indoctrinated that much to believe that we weren't even human, really. And that's hard to believe because Germans were very, very intelligent people. But they were indoctrinated and brainwashed so much that they actually believed that.
San Antonio in Texas, and that was the first place I'd really seen what segregation really is. They had water fountains for whites and water fountains for coloreds. But you know me, I love drinking from the white water fountain.
As a matter of fact, in the early teens, there was a hanging in St. Joe, which a lot of people don't know about. And some of the kids, some of you younger kids that are going to be listening, they should check in your history and stuff. Because one of the grandkids, I think, of the person that got hanged was an associate of ours, you know, that went to school with us and grew up with us. And it wasn't talked about or anything amongst people because it was so horrific that no one wanted to talk about it.
Well, other than what I read in the paper, what people write about everything, you know, there's racism everywhere. Everybody suffers racism. White people, black people, gays, lesbians, baseball stars, movie stars, everybody suffers racism. So it doesn't bother me, you know. I've grown and matured in my understanding, my rationale. And I don't even look at it as racism anymore because I've been taught that it's not racism, it's ignorance. Okay, so that's how I look at everything now. Okay, either you're intelligent or you're ignorant. Okay, and when you call me a nigger, you're ignorant. You don't even hurt my feelings, you're ignorant because your language, it's your language which elevates us or which takes us down. So, you know, and like I said, my teacher was Dr. Raffini, okay? So it's your language. It's all about language in this day and time.
Elementary school at Douglas and high school at Bartlett High, and then Lincoln University. I got my degree from there. Just odd jobs because I couldn't get a job here in St. Joe teaching. And my mother wasn't well, and so I had to stay around here.
From kindergarten through the 4th grade at Bartlett. Then I switched to the Catholic schools. I went to Immaculate Conception through the 8th grade, then up to the Convent of Sacred Heart through high school.
I wasn't really what you would call a student. I was really more of I was just there. My classroom attendance was bad. You know, my grades were bad, except for those classes. I liked history, so I was basically an A student in history, geography. That was all right with me, but when it came to mathematics and calculus and those in high school, I was all right in grade. I come out of grade school, graduated out of grade school, but I didn't make it no further than the 10th grade in high school. But I later went on to receive my GED and that type of thing when I began to appreciate learning.
I attended the St. Joseph Junior College, which is now currently the Missouri Western State University. Graduated from the junior college, received my undergraduate and graduate degree at Maryville, Northwest Missouri State University.
So I finished 8th grade in Lovejoy. Then we went to high school in East St. Louis, East School. And after the 3rd year, East St. Louis would let us take our outside school back to Lincoln High School. So we had to find a high school education the best way that we could.
I was around now, let's see, 19, I was 20 years old when they came up here and worked at the packaging house here and the foundry before that time, and then they helped my job open in 42. I had to go to the service.
I worked for Armours and Company. I was a millwright for 40 years at Armours and Company. And they call them millwrights, master mechanic and master of none, you know what I mean? That was what you call a millwright, you know what I mean?
Oh, I worked on the playgrounds during the summer months, and I worked hanging stock at a dry goods at a woman's apparel place.
I had worked for the government. I taught night school for older people who couldn't read, and I also sat during the day with older people.
It was an interesting experience in that I was the first black assigned to an not all-white school, but a white staff school. There were black students attending, but I was the first one there. And then I moved on to be down at the district office, working in desegregation, supervisor, director, a coach. I ended up as an administrator of not only a middle school, but an elementary school.
I served on really just a number of the different boards. I've been on the library board. I'm currently, I used to be on the board for the St. Joseph, the museum. Now I am also still there just in some capacity, just through the Black Archives. The InterCert board. I was also instrumental in starting here that we got a jazz festival that me and there's another news reporter that we began 15 years ago. And we got a blues festival too that we began 15 years ago. And I just do, and I got a writer's workshop just for youth, that I do every year, just to introduce them, to what I do and just give these underprivileged kids or, just ones that are, just give them a chance to see if they want to do just what I do for a living. Because when I was young, no one ever told me, that I could be a writer. I mean, it was just something I did, just for fun, and I never thought I could do it, there for a living.
In 1959, in June of '59. And I was in San Antonio for 8 weeks because I had my basic training there, and then they made a medic out of me. So I had another 8 weeks of training. So, and then when I graduated from all the training and everything, I still was in Texas. They sent me to Fort Worth. So I worked at Carswell Air Force Base and at the big hospital there. And I think it was a wonderful life. I really do. I don't know what the life is like now, but with Afghanistan and Iraq and all that. But I loved it.
It was so close to call. It was too close to call when we had to go in a lot of time on blackouts, blackout lights, and back in and unload as quick as possible and get out of there and things like that. But I've seen a lot of zeros coming over and things like that. We kind of had to unload ourselves, because the convoy, you didn't want them to strike a convoy and things like that. But we made it, and I'm grateful for it.
I think it was Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and all the Jewish soldiers were invited to participate in the ceremony in the hangar of Schofield, not Schofield, can't even think of the name of the air base anymore. Anyway, we went there, and all the waiters were black GIs, which I didn't appreciate unless they were getting paid, and I don't know whether they made extra pay or not, but it just didn't seem right.
And that was during the confrontation between the United States and North Korea. So they were building up our troop force. And if you came down on that levee, then your time was automatically extended by a year. So I 1049, which is same volunteered for Vietnam, so I could do my tour and come home.
I was a medic there, and for part of the time I was a cook too, in Vietnam, and like I said, I was there a year, and I didn't really get to see some of the worst things, but I got to see the result of the worst things, because the second largest hospital in the Air Force at that time was at Cameron Bay, and I got to see a lot of young men with their limbs missing, and the worst part of it was psychological problems with their minds, and drug problems were just unbelievably huge. A lot of people who developed drug problems because the drug was very cheap in Vietnam came back here to the States, and it was 50 times as much. And obviously, they went off into all kinds of things and didn't have treatments. Treatment was better than Korean War, but it wasn't anywhere near as good as it is now.
Know your history and know how you got here, because you wasn't born where you're right at. It took a lot of people working hard to lose their lives, to go through a lot of discrimination and hate and disrespect, for you to be able to have the opportunities that you do today.
Just believe what we're saying, because it really happened. We're not lying. This happened to us, and we don't ever want it to happen to anybody again.
You can't blame nobody. I see a lot of the young people say, well, they won't hire me because, you know what I mean, because I'm black or whatever. No, that's not the case. They hire you because you're a fool, you know what I mean? I'll put it plain and blunt. You want to blame somebody else for your own troubles, your own problems. Because all my grandkids right today, I tell them in a minute, if you don't get your education, it'd be your own fault.
I would like to see them make it. If we have any kind of problem, this world going along with, we need it, and I want them to do the best they can, and I hope them well and do much better than I do, because they got so much later cognitive things that's going on now than it was when I came up. And I would like for them to do better than I ever thought of doing, because I know that I'm doing better than my father were when he was living. And I would want him to try to live right and do the right thing, and he will be loved throughout this world.
I would like for you to realize that people, no matter what color they are, they have likes and dislikes. If you cut them, they all bleed. I don't care who they are. And they like to be treated with respect. And that's one of the things when I first started to work that bothered me the most. Lack of respect.
Nowadays, I like to see the kids more go to college and get a better education. The things that I should have done, still jumping up, quitting. Mm-hmm.
You can do whatever you want to do. I really have always believed that. And from what I've seen, the people who really are interested in doing something in their lives have been able to do it.
You only have one life. Live it to the best of your ability. You can't please everyone. You can't live your life as someone else wants you to. If you're not comfortable, I have a saying. Every day I get up and the first thing I do is look in the mirror. And as long as I can look in that mirror and say to the images looking back at me, I like you, then I don't really care what other people think.
You know, stay put. Stay where you're at, do the best that you can, give back. Always give back to your community. Always give back to your community, because that's what makes a community grow, when people who have roots, that should give back to your community. Although it's all right to go somewhere else, because you probably might be needed somewhere else, but always give back to your community, where your community that raised you and nourished you and made you what you are. So never forget your roots. That's my message. Never forget your roots.
Well, life is short, and it's very important to keep your priorities straight on what you value. Religion, the family, and last, yourself. And so far as your commitment, if you keep those three in perspective and give back to the community in whatever talent, skills that you have, and keep focus on what your talents and skills are, and then you'll do more than what is expected of you than if you listen to others that may not have the same values, your religion, your family, and yourself in mind.
And these people's stories are right here, for you to listen to, so you get better understanding of why you're here and why you're able to do the things you're able to do. No one gets anywhere without help from somewhere, you know. That's like I wasn't born working there at the newspaper. I mean, I had my struggles. I mean, I had my time on the street, you know, being a fool and everything, but there comes a point where you had to get down to what you need to do. But the most part is to know your history and know where you're from and respect that history and move it forward. I mean, that's all we're supposed to do. And I hope with these videos, that if you need some reassurance or if you need to be reminded where you're from, then I hope these videos will really just kind of help you understand that and move forward.
Hang in there. Don't give up.